And recursive functions. In this video, we are going to check what you mean by iterative function and what exactly are recursive functions. Let's get going. Say that you have a question wherein you have to write a function for computing the factorial of a number. Now you can do this in both ways. You can do this either using an iterative function or either using a recursive function. Since we have not gone to the basics of recursive function, we will check on how we go about writing a function for computing the factorial of a number, and then I'll tell you why we call it as an iterative function. So here you see that I have divided my main code. This is one code into two functions. So you see this black part as one function and you see my factorial function over here. The name of my factorial function is factorial. It's taking one parameter. This is going to be the actual parameter. This is going to be the formal parameter, while 5 is going to be the actual parameter. 10 is going to be the actual parameter. This is just the formal parameter, num. The return type is int over here, so towards the end of the program you will have to write a return. If you do not write a return towards the end of the program always returns the latest accumulator register value. So you have to consider it as an analogy to a shelf, and the topmost value of a shelf is always something called as the AX. It's an accumulator register. So whatever is the latest value over here, or the recent value, that is returned. So right now we want to return the factorial of any number that we compute, so that we are going to put in over here. You have to understand that this is one program. I have just divided the main separately and I am making sure the function part is maximized. Over here, coming back to the main, I have a z here. Can anyone tell me why I have a z? If you have taken a minute to think why we need this z is because we have a return coming from here. To ensure that value is held or caught, we have a z. The other way in writing this without using a z is by making sure you use a printf. So this is a function call. We are not taking an user input value, otherwise you would have to say please enter the number whose factorial you want to compute, and then the user will say n, and then you'll put n here. So this n can be 5, it can be 10, it can be 20, it can be 30, but make sure that the answers that you get should hold in the range of the int. It shouldn't be more than the integer values, otherwise it's going to overflow. Alright, okay, going on ahead. Similarly, I'm using factorial of 4. So this way you can use this to compute factorial of 5, factorial of 4, factorial of 10, but you have to make sure that this container will hold those many values. So now over here there are different ways in which we can compute the factorial of a number. Here I've made use of a while condition. Now this while condition puts a check on whether the number whom we are computing a factorial on is greater than 0. So the number is 5 here, 5 comes and sits here, then there's a check here. Now this is the function definition which we are putting. This black thing, the first line, is a function header. Now if you have a function definition coming after the main, the latest compilers which you may be using won't throw any errors, but theoretically, or if you had used the ancient compiler, that is your Turbo C, you would have to prototype the function header in the beginning with a semicolon. So that is called as function prototyping. I repeat, if after the void main you have this function definition coming over here. Then you will have to go to the top and repeat this function header over here and put a semicolon and ensure that you have done your function prototyping. Okay, the ancient compilers throw an error. Theoretically it is not right, though you may say, ma'am, the new compilers now do not do anything of such sort. But you have to understand that you need to prototype functions that are defined after the main. So going back with the function definition, here I am using a while loop. I am checking whether the number is greater than 0. If it is greater than 0, I go ahead and compute the factorial. Now this is an elaborate functioning of the code that I have written. When the number is greater than 0, I intend to compute the factorial. Because I intend to compute the factorial, I make sure I write over here one small piece of code inside here. But when I generate this piece of code, I am using one extra variable f. Now because I am using this extra variable f, which I used for the functioning of my code, I go ahead and declare it over here, and this becomes my local variable declaration. F is not recognized in any other function other than factorial. It is born here and it is dead here. So the life of f is only from here to here. So what factorial of 5 is what? Factorial of 5 is, say, 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. If you see over here, 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. I can also write it as 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5. So there are different ways. In this way, what is done is, it is given as 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Let's see how it's done. First I say f is equal to 1. This is a very compulsory step. If you don't do this, you're going to get funny answers towards the end. Then you check whether the num is greater than 0. Yes, we'll check whether 5 is greater than 0. It is greater than 0. If it is greater than 0, what to do? If it is greater than 0, you're going to do f is equal to f into num. So let's come here, okay? And then num minus minus is done. So let's check here what's exactly happening. So num is greater than 0, yes. So 5 is greater than 0. If 5 is greater than 0, what to do? F is equal to f into num. So f is right now 1. So you say 1 into 5. So what is the current value of f? Current value of f is 5. And then here it says num minus minus, because of which num becomes 4. So 4 greater than 0? Yes. So what you're going to do now? You're going to do f is equal to f into num. So now this code is doing 5 into 4. So now f becomes 20. Then you make your num equal to 3 because of this num minus minus. Then you check again, 3 greater than 0, yep. Then you see over here, f is equal to f into num. What was the previous value of f? If you see, f now held 20. So it's going to do 20 into this num, that is 3. So you're going to do 60. After that you do num minus minus, you get 2. Then again you check, 2 greater than 0, yes. Then you do f is equal to f into num. So 60 into 2, 120. Alright. So right now, this num is not 120. This num is not 120. This num is 1 now. F is 120. So it's again going to check now. Is num greater than 0? 1 is greater than 0? Yes. So what are you going to do? F is equal to f into num. Previous value of f is 120. Bring it down and say 120 into 1. 120 is your answer. That is exactly what is factorial of 5, right? Yeah. and then you're going to do num minus minus. So num is equal to 0. So because num is equal to 0, you're not going to do this, and what you're going to do is you're going to just return f. Alright, now in this code I have only taken care of factorial of positive numbers. If the person enters factorial of 0, then here f is 1, it would have just returned 1. So in this case, since I'm computing factorial of 5, I've shown you the trace. This is what I mean by the trace. I am going to be returning 120. I hope this is clear to you. Now in this code, the person has made sure the factorial of a number is computed as 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Okay, and the condition made use is num greater than 0. We can also write this code in another way, where I keep everything the same, everything is the same, I just change the condition. I said num not equal to 0. So you go on doing the same thing. The trace is over here. The trace is over here. You're just going on doing the same thing, but you just put a different way to check the condition. Am I clear with this? Okay, now there could be another way. Now in this case I used a while, in the previous case also I used a while, only difference was the condition was different. Now what I do is I use another way, and I call this way way3. I mean, just for my justification. Okay, again I'm using same code, there's no difference, just that I'm making use of a different loop over here. In the previous cases I made use of a while loop. Now because I would be making use of a for loop over here, there is another way in which I could compute this also. Now if you notice, the difference is I'm using I plus plus, I'm not using num minus minus, I'm starting at 1. Alright, so here I want to compute the factorial as 1 into 1, then 1 into 2, then 1 into 2 into 3, then 1 into 2 into 3 into 4, then 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5, because then I have a condition here for I less than equal to num. Return f. In the previous cases I was doing 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. In this case I'm doing 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5. So the extra local variable declaration I will require is I, in addition to the f that was there already. I use my for loop starting at 1, stopping at 5, and in the previous case I had made sure I did num minus minus, but here I always want my point or my counter variable to shift 1 ahead, so I'll be doing I plus plus. Then here I say f is equal to f into I. Again care has to be taken that you put f equal to 1 in the beginning and keep. This will go on happening till you make sure that your I, which was initially 1, sits at or becomes equal to 5. So till then it will go on happening as 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5, and then you're going to return the final answer, that is f. Now if you notice that the previous case I used a while loop, so that means steps or the factorial was computed step by step. Even here the factorial is computed step by step. In the first value of the loop, when I is equal to 1, factorial is 1, that is 1 into 1. When I becomes equal to 2 because of I plus plus. Okay, so let's see the computation of factorial. There's a pictographic demonstration for you. It's the same code. What I meant was, when I is equal to 1, f is 1 and that gets multiplied by I. So it will be 1 into 1. So all the red that you see over here are the i's incremented in the for loop. So when I is equal to 2, this f which was computed earlier, the new value is 1, becomes 1 into 2. 2 is the value of I. When I is equal to 3, this 2 comes here. Now this is the new f, which is multiplied by I, that is 3. So on so forth. This goes on happening till I is equal to 5, and the resultant value is 24 into 5. So this return f is going to throw out 24 into 5, which is 120, which is going to be caught by this z over here. So now this was way 1 which we saw, this is way 2 which we saw, and this is the way 3 which we saw. In this example, and in this example, you see that 120, 120 and 120 also gets computed in a stepwise fashion. For every value of 43210 or 54321. Similarly over here, for every value of 54321 and for every value of 1 2 3 4 5. Now this is 1 2 3 4 5 because it is I plus plus. This is 5 4 3 2 1 because it is num minus minus. So for every step you have an answer, and the final answer is computed because of each of these steps. So each step is considered to be one iteration, and therefore we have got the resultant answer for an iterative function. So these are called as iterative functions, wherein you get the final answer as a series of or as a result of some steps that you have done. Now these steps will only happen in an iteration format when you use a for loop or when you use a while loop. You may also use a do while loop, but again, because there's a while coming into picture there, it becomes an iterative process. So these are called as iterative functions. Let us see one more example wherein we are computing the power of a number by making use of a function. Now let's see whether we make use of iterative function or just a normal function. Now over here again I have divided my program into two portions. This is my main portion and this is my function definition portion. Going back again, this is my function header, and there is nothing in the function definition yet. But I would like to compute the power of 2 raised to 5. This can be anything that you want to put. However, the arguments that you put over here should be the same as the number of arguments you have put in your formal parameter list. This is formal parameter list. Again, they have to match the type of the parameters that you have put over here. This is int and this is int. So you cannot have 2.5 and 3.5 here. Both are of the integer kind. Fine. What are you going to do if you have something like 2, 0, that is 2 raised to 0? In that case, you will have to write a condition which gives you an answer for 2 raised to 0. So I am expecting that this is the base and this is the index. Alright. So if 5 is going to be the index, in this case it is going to be 0 because we are working for 2 raised to 0. So if b equal, so this one becomes b. The condition is in the b, is on the b. So if b equal to 0, you will have to give out an answer, and that answer is 1. So you will be returning 1. Now what if it is something other than 0? In that case, what are you going to do? So that means if your index is greater than 0, you will have to do something. So if b is greater than 0, what are you going to do? Now if b is greater than 0, you know that you have to return something. Alright. Now for that computation of something, I have brought into another variable ans, answer. Now since I have brought into another variable into existence, I will have to go ahead over here and put in a local variable declaration. The local variable declaration is ans, and I am making sure I put it to some answer in the beginning that is equal to 1, because the base answer is always 1, that is 2 raised to 0 is 1. So over here We run with this. If b is equal to 0, now we are checking if b is greater than 0. Now if b is greater than 0, you will have to compute, for example, say 2 raised to 5, 2 into 2 into 2 into 2 into 2. You will have to do that 5 times. So if you see over here, you will have to go on doing a set of steps, iterations for some amount of time and stop at a certain place or certain point. So that certain point that you have to stop will be put in this condition here. Now suppose I start with 5, I will have to go on doing it till I reach 1, something like that. So over here my answer at the moment is 1. Let's see how to trace it. Now b is greater than 0, that is 5 is greater than 0, yes. Now while 5 is greater than 0, we know that the variable we are using, answer, is kept as 1. So the first time what happens is answer gets computed as 1 into a. So 1 into 2. Why is that? Because we have a is equal to 2 and b is equal to 5. Then b now becomes 4 because of the b minus minus. Initially b was 5. So you have to do all these steps till b remains greater than 0. Now let's go step by step. First time answer is 1 into 2. Second time, after b becomes 4, b is again checked on and now answer will become 2 into 2. Then again b is decremented and b is checked on, then answer becomes this 4 into 2, again 8 into 2, again. Once more it has to be done, because if you see b is 1 now, so answer will become 16 into 2. Now b becomes 0 because of b minus minus, and it is going to come out of this loop. When it comes out of this loop, it has to return answer. The answer it is going to return is this 16 into 2. This 16 into 2, it returns to z, and z now has the answer or the value of 16 into 2, that is 32, which is 2 raised to 5. You may do this program for different values. All you have to do is over here just change the numbers, but you have to make sure that the answer that you're going to be getting is going to be held in the container value of int, like it is possible range. The program is over here put out to compute the power of a number, that is a raised to b. You can also change this code to accept the base from the user, to accept the index from the user, and then accordingly put this as m raised to n or a raised to b or x raised to y. You may try this and check whether you're getting the correct answer. We now move on to recursion. We'll check how recursion works, but before that I hope you have understood what exactly was the whole idea behind working with iterative functions and why we call them iterative functions.